Now there's one more tool I want to try out in the basic set, but this isn't a drawing tool. This is the transform tool. You use this tool to change the shapes that you've drawn with the other tools. It's right up here, and it has a little box with the handles around it. To use the free transform tool, we simply need to select an object to work on. Now you can use the tool itself to do your selections just like you do with the normal selection tool. I can click to grab this fill, or I could double click to grab the fill and the stroke around the outside of it. In addition to selecting the object, it also creates a box around it and gives me these handles. These are familiar for any kind of transform tool. You can just grab the corners and reshape or resize that object, whatever it is you have selected. If you hold down Shift while you're dragging the corner, you'll scale the horizontal and vertical proportionally so you keep the same shape and don't distort your object. And if you grab the middle handles, you'll be scaling your object either vertically or horizontally. Now this is kind of a multi-purpose tool, so if you drag your cursor around, you'll see a couple of different hints showing the different functions that we can do with it.